Geographers, how you doing? All right, back for more GIS excitement for this week. And so this week, the plan is I'm going to teach you a few new things, or maybe it's not even it might not be too much new with this week, but I'll tweak some things that we've done, but also a lot of what I want you to do for this week is all stuff that you've already learned in some previous week. But the difference here is I'm not going to walk you through step by step with everything. Instead, like I have here on the screen, I'm starting out with my new map project already there. I've downloaded data from Canvas, right? I'm ready to go. You should, at this point in the semester, be able to do this stuff. And if not, well, number one, let me put it this way. With all of this, try to do this on your own. Assuming that you've been keeping up with the exercises, you've been completing everything these first handful of weeks, try to do it on your own. See what you can do just from memory. Then, if any of these steps just aren't quite working out, go back. Think about when we've done this in previous weeks. Watch that video or think back to that exercise itself. Try to recreate those steps and then apply it to what we're doing this time. Okay, it's all, this is all part of the plan here. To continue to repeat some of these tasks, but slowly make you do more and more on your own. And also keep in mind that not too long from when you're watching this video, you'll have your first midterm for the class, in which I don't even do a video like this and have you, give you any direction on the steps to do things. I simply say, hey, I want you to do this. And there'll be some key points I want you to hit, and you won't be completely on your own, but you're going to have to do this work on your own. Right? You need to have learned it by this point. So we're baby stepping. That's what we're doing here to get you ready for that first big challenge of the class. All right? All right. So I have here, you can see on the screen, I have this map I called US_population. I downloaded the US_pop geodatabase from Canvas. Kept these names different just so I don't get confused with the auto-generated one versus what I'm downloading from Canvas. But in that geodatabase that I downloaded, all you will find in there is one feature class simply called states, and that's what we're looking at right here. So I brought that into ArcMap after unzipping it and all that. I'm sorry, it's not ArcMap anymore. Into ArcGIS. My apologies. But I brought it in to my map. Also, what I did, and this was to remind myself to say this to you to make sure you're doing it, is I turned off these default, this thing, the whole topographic map thing that we start out with. It's thinking right here, slowly working. But this thing that's automatically on when I create a new map, not only did I uncheck it, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and remove it. I want to get this out of here. And I've noticed on some of your maps that you're turning in, you leave these on and visible, and maybe you bring new layers in and put them on top of there, so you can't actually see that world topographic map. But what happens with your final layout is it forces this source text onto the map itself, and so you see all this stuff on the map that you don't need, and it's kind of distracting, and it looks like, to be perfectly honest, it makes you look like you don't know what you're doing when you have something like that happening, which is what we're trying to avoid. So, to make sure that I don't accidentally leave it on, have weird things pop into my final layout, I just got rid of it. Right click, remove it. So get into that habit. Remove this stuff that you're not going to need. And so instead, all I have is this simple states feature class. Okay, and apologies too. I don't know what the sound is like on your end. I'm recording this during quite the windstorm where I'm at, so all that whooshing or noise you hear, if you hear it, it's ridiculous winds where I'm at. Hopefully, it's not too distracting. So with this, the state's geodatabase, it is, you know, what it says it is. It's the states, and we can see I have the contiguous United States, the lower 48, however you want to call them. I've got Alaska, I've got Hawaii. All right, so I've got all of these, and in here, what I'm going to show you in the attribute table, I've got a bunch of information here, and this is quite useful for a variety of different, projects and analysis and things you can do. And we've got the typical state name, general information here, but then you can see I have POP 2020, so it's our population. I have POP 20 underscore, and that's square miles. I have POP 2010, same thing, POP 10 square miles, and then you see white, black, and so on. And this is all census data, which, I'll be honest with you, it's sometimes useful when we're doing some kind of analysis to break things down based on racial, ethnic groups, male, female, something along those lines. It's also a case where with the 2020 census, things started to get more complicated and nuanced in how race was recorded, which is good because race is really as simple as white, black, Asian is a great one. I mean, just think of the billions of different people you're putting into that category. It doesn't necessarily mean anything to compare, say, someone from China versus someone from Bangladesh or something like that, but it's still, you're lumped into this Asian classification, for better or worse. But the problem is, once we get into some of that nuance, it can also make analysis impossible to do. So it's, what I'm saying is, what I'm getting at here is that you've got this information. It can be valuable. It can also get you nowhere. And it gets into not just knowing what to do with GIS, but also, just in terms of quantitative and qualitative analysis in general. And whatever your field might be, whatever your area of expertise is, you need to learn these other methods that you can connect with GIS. But it's here nonetheless. So you've got this whole host of stuff, different age, things, family size, if homes are owner occupied or renter occupied, farms. I mean, look at all this stuff. And then finally, I'll just point this out, square miles of the actual state itself. Okay, so I'm pointing this out because we're going to use this in a moment. So I'll close that. All right, and what I also did this week, pull this up onto the screen so you can see it, is I went ahead and I made the map I want you to make, and I did it, kind of ahead of time, so you can get a sense of what I'm going for. In previous weeks, I've just said, hey, do this, do whatever, experiment. This week, the goal I have for you is to not only make a map that looks like this, but work toward a truly professional, clean-looking final product. And you've all been doing fine with what I've asked you to do. Some of you have been quite creative and clever with different, color schemes and the ways in which you've been creating these layouts. Other people just kind of doing the basic stuff, a little more conservative. Totally fine. Nobody's lost points for stuff other than from things that I've explicitly pointed out and said, hey, don't do this. And then you do it, and it takes the points off. Okay, but for everybody else, it's been kind of whatever, experiment. But now this is what I want you to produce. It doesn't have to be the green color scheme. I picked that one because it worked, went for it. You have some flexibility there, but I want the end map to be something that's very clean and deliberate. All right? And so what I'm showing here is population per square mile. All right? And I just, kept it simple. I have the legend in here. You'll notice there's no north arrow, no scale bars. I don't have some elaborate title. Kept that simple. I put my source down here in the lower right, okay, and it's from ESRI, and the data were from a 2021 release. So I've just got that there. I put the map by in my name, which I normally wouldn't do, but since this is a class thing, it's just nice to kind of keep this all together for grading purposes and all that. But I've just got that down in the corner. It's not big. It's not in some kind of obnoxious place. It's just off to the side if someone needs to see it. And what I'll show you to do, we've gotten into this whole graduated colors thing. Did that with the forest stuff from what was it last time. But we'll talk about how I put Hawaii down here in this corner. I put Alaska over here so we can include it, but did it in a way so it's actually it's professional. It's attractive, and we're going for two. This is something I should point out. We're going for something that would be in either a PowerPoint presentation, some kind of report, some printed report. This could go in a book, like an academic book or an academic journal article or something like that. We're not using this for navigation. We're not using it to measure things or anything like that. We're simply looking at population density around the United States and trying to quickly get some basic patterns that exist, right? Which we can see here. We can see that we have, California is this one kind of anomaly within the entire Western United States. So we have much higher population densities over on the East Coast, but even just the East Coast in general, it's kind of more tightly packed in than we see out west. We can see what's happening between Hawaii and Alaska here, right? Compare these places to other states that exist. It's simply there for reference. And so because of that, we want clean, deliberate. We want the legend to be something that's easy to read, placed in the center right there, right? That's what we're going for. And we could even, I put population per square mile, which is what we're going to do. I could have put also 2020 population per square mile. It's up to you. I was just going for keeping it simple and deliberate. So again, this is our goal right here. All right, so let's get rid of that. And you can see this is what we're starting with. Handful of things. Number one, we've got Alaska, where Alaska actually is in relation to the United States. Same thing with Hawaii. It's not, one's not off the coast of Florida, the other one not off the coast of California here. So that, we'll get into how we do that. But you also notice, and maybe in fact, let me bring it back up, make sure we notice, if we look and compare, it's always most obvious, I think, with Maine and New England in general. You can see on this one, it's kind of droopy. The country is spread out, right? Whereas with this one, it's looks different. And to be perfectly honest, I think this looks way better. If I see a map that has this going on, this droopiness and this stretched out, I tune it out. I don't trust it. It tells me that the person who made the map doesn't know what they're doing. But if I see something that looks like this, and it's a change that's effectively effortless, but if someone took the time to make some of these changes in here, I know they're going to take the time to do quality work, right? Or at least I can assume that. They might still be messing with me, so they'll need to carefully read the map and break it apart and all that if I'm trying to get information from it. But this, at least, it puts me at ease when I see this, that I think that the person who made it, they knew what they were doing. Okay, so that's a goal here. That's what we're going to try to accomplish. Now, in order to make this map, we're going to do a couple of things. Now, number one, I'm going to rename, and I really, we've talked about this before. I'm still going to do it because I didn't set it up ahead of time. So, but it's the idea that I want to make sure that my map frame, whatever the proper terminology is here, that it has a deliberate label. It doesn't just say map, and then when I add another one, it doesn't just say map 1 map 2, and so on. I want to be clear with this stuff. All right, so I'm going to do this, and then it'll be clear why in a moment. The next thing I want to do is I want to get into that whole projection issue, right? Why this is droopy. So I'm going to go back in here, right click properties or double click or whatever, coordinate systems. What I want you to use for this one, we do this projected, go into continental and North America. This is going to be our little realm in which we are working. And I want to use this North American datum, NAD 1983. Doesn't really matter for what we're doing. This 2011 versus just the straight one or whatever. So I'm just going to pick this one. But I just want that contiguous USA Albers. I'm going to hit OK. And you can see it starts to change right here. And now here's something, and it's a shame. What I should have done, were I a good professor, I would have anticipated this. I should have put the latitude and longitude lines in here. You can do this if you want to play around and see, but what you see with this, it's a conic projection. It's beautiful for the contiguous United States, hence the name. So this looks great. But as we move to the west or over to the east, everything starts to fan out. So we can see Alaska kind of turns over here. Hawaii starts to look like it's rotating in this funny way, and that's effectively because it is, because of the nature of this projection. So this one in particular here, what it's designed for is a map that's simply focused on the contiguous United States. This looks gorgeous right here. Alaska, Hawaii, not so much, but we'll get into that. We'll get into how we fix that. Okay, but I want you to use that specific projection. And I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And then what I want to do, this is something I'll show you because it's worth getting into. In fact, I'll do it this way. Yeah, just to make you work for it if you don't remember how to do this. But what I want to do is change the symbology. All right, a little pane over here I already had up. A couple of different ways you can get to it. Go through it if you can't figure out exactly how to get here, if yours doesn't match mine or whatever. But instead of single symbol, where I have this, just kind of generic single color on here, I'm going to do this graduated colors thing again. All right, I'm going to figure out a nice color scheme that I think works for what it is I'm trying to do. But what I also need to do is pay attention to what I'm actually mapping. Now, it defaulted to POP 2020. So I can say, perfect, I'm looking at the 2020 population. Here's the problem, though. Raw population numbers are rarely useful because they can be affected by the actual boundary itself. All right, like in fact, let me scoop that. Let's see everybody real quick here. So I've got California is red, Texas red, and so by default, what that's saying is like, let's see the Texas population. If I just click on that, in 2020 is no commas, so at 29, almost 30 million people. California, almost 40 million people in there, right? So we have these, heavily populated states. The issue, though, is these are also, they're states where we just have a lot of people, or a lot of space, rather, right? So you're able to fit people in there. So we can get misleading things if the state boundary itself is just really large. Okay, then that's going to be, you're going to have a lot of people in there because it covers a large area. Hopefully that makes sense. Whereas you get to some of these smaller states, if we, zoom in to the East Coast, we have tiny little areas, places, like Rhode Island and Delaware and all these spots that are just by default tiny. Okay, in fact, I think we've got DC right here. Yeah, we have, not a state, but we have the District of Columbia. Washington, D.C. is in here, and it's got, 706,000 people, roughly. But it's also a very tiny area. So it doesn't necessarily tell us a lot about what's going on here. Okay, now we do have this pop 20 underscore square mile. It's the same, population numbers, but now we're dividing it by the size of the state itself. And you can see what happened here is Texas changed dramatically. All right, let's go back to this to make sure it's clear. So we do this one. Texas is up the high end of the spectrum. A lot of people in here. But when we break it down by per square mile, it actually drops down to the lower side of the spectrum because, yes, they have a lot of people in Texas, but Texas is also a huge state, and so it's not densely packed like some other places. We zoom back in here. There's DC. You can see that's now red. It's got this high population density in here. If we click on that, you can see that pop 20 underscore square mile. It's about 11,000, per people per square mile. And that's how we read that. So if we evenly separated everybody into the actual square miles in the area, that's how many people would be crammed into a square mile, or not crammed in, right? West Virginia here, that it's 77 people per square mile. So a very, very clear difference in terms of what the whole experience is like, how spread out the population is, or tightly packed in a population is. And we can still have urban and rural divides and all that, but typically when we're making a map of population, we want to have some kind of population density. Do it based on square miles, square kilometers, acres, something along those lines. Now we already have this set up in here. And then the same thing with population from 2010 per square mile. But what I want to show you, I think I talked about this last time, is this whole normalization field. This is what the field is useful for here. So let's say we didn't have that field where it was already, the pop 20 underscore square kilometers, but we do have, if we scroll down, we have this square mile, or did I say kilometers? I meant miles here. We have this here. Okay? And you can see, so when I do that normalization, square miles, it's creating that ratio right there, right? Not just raw population numbers, but based on the square mileage of the state. So this is the exact same thing that we saw. All right? But this shows how this normalization field is useful. And that could be useful if you're getting into different racial groups, males, females, kids under 5, right? In fact, let's get rid of this. Here, none. All right, we have tons of kids under the age of 5, no shocker, in California and Texas again. And sure, we've got others, but honestly, I'm a Californian. I just focus here and we deal with Texas because they're kind of obnoxious, always trying to be as cool as us, and people are threatening to move there and all that. Like, whatever, have at it. So yeah, we'll just ignore these other guys. But you can see, goodness, we've got a lot of kids under 5. But yeah, we got a lot of people because we're a big area, right? So if we look at that square mile, you could also do it as a percentage of the actual population in there, right? You could do how many are within a specific area, and it gets into what is it you're trying to study. But we do this again. You can see that California is still hefty in terms of that scale. Texas not so much, but then we get over again into that East Coast where things are a little smaller. You can see stuff is just kind of more packed in. So if we were targeting in an area, say like where to put in new preschools or daycare operations or something like that, this might be a useful thing to look at. Well, where do we have a bunch of kids under the age of 5 in some kind of small geographic area? So we get a sense of, yes, it would actually make sense to put a new facility here versus over there, right? Or if we're looking at federal dollars, yes, it would make more sense to send it to California and, New Jersey, Massachusetts over there versus Wyoming, because there's more of a demand, right? So that's what we're getting into with this whole normalization. It gets into proper spatial analysis. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in this class when we get into geoprocessing. But honestly, that's a lot of this is it's subject for future classes. Right? And I'll say this, if you are intending on going on and actually working with GIS, not just taking one class to fulfill the requirements and get your degree and move on and never think of it again, but if you want to actually make maps and do analysis and do work with this, it's very important that you take at least a few more classes to ensure you know what you're doing, because it's very easy for me to do something, starting out. This is what I would have done. Just, okay, yeah, show something like this, or just show, population or whatever, and leave it at that. Never thinking that there's another way to do it, or that the way I'm doing it isn't necessarily correct or the best way, right? Or it can be misleading or things like that. So I encourage you, take more classes, intermediate classes, spatial analysis classes, and all that, to at least learn what you need to know to do good work. All right, but okay, pep talk over. Let's get, so I'll just do this. I feel like I'm actually doing something. And you can pick any color scheme in here. You just want to have it make sense, right? If I do something like this, it kind of doesn't necessarily make sense. And typically, our eyes are drawn to darker colors as meaning more of something. When we're dealing with quantities, in this case population, we tend to equate the darker color with a higher population. So this one might not necessarily work. Also, for data like this, I don't like to have a bunch of different colors showing up. Even if they kind of go together, I mean, yeah, it would work, but it gets into a weird, arbitrary thing. Like, again, this darker blue I would read as more, but really, and it's DC is the thing that's screwing it up. It has the highest population density here because it's a city that's measured with all this stuff. But it's that hot pink color that's the highest one. This purple is the next highest, then blue. It's confusing to me. And you shouldn't have it to where I have to, yes, we're going to have a legend, but I shouldn't even need to look at the legend to get the general idea of what's going on. So I recommend you do something where it's one color. This was the green scheme I did. It doesn't have to be green. You can do blue. You can do, we have, reds and purples and pinks and different things in here. So I'll leave it up to you, but I encourage you to be simple with this stuff, right? Don't do anything that's overly complicated, because we want our map to quickly get the point across, not stressing out or irritating the map reader. And I think if you're giving a talk at some place, you need to talk about population, and you put this up on the screen and it's got all sorts of weird colors, people are going to be staring at that, not listening to you, and they're going to leave that talk going, wow, I didn't get anything from that. I was just looking at that hideous map. All right? The map should be there to help. It should never be there to distract or take away from what it is you're doing. Okay, so I'm just going to leave it with this. Play around with that stuff. But here's what we're going to do to get to the map that we want. We're going to hit insert. So I'll go ahead. Let's see. Well, yeah, we'll do the new layout first. I'm going to do it landscape, because that's the way my the main country runs here, the contiguous United States. So it'll all fit in there. I'm going to put in my existing map, more or less. I'll oops, hold on. Oh, now you're freaking out. Don't freak out. Oh, I think it's oh, son of a gun. All right. I think my windows are off on other screens right now. But there we go. We'll do that. And so you notice, I've still got Alaska. I've still got Hawaii over here. But I'm going to center on the United States. I'm not going to get too worried about, exactly where it is right now, because I'll probably resize it before I'm done. But I just want to zoom in. And I talked to some of you, like with the South America map we did, it was a case where you zoomed in, but you were missing part of it, right? So I didn't see some of the stuff. We never want to do that. Also, for some of you, it was something like this. And so we have all this other space. We don't want to do that. We want to be zoomed in just enough to see only what we're interested in. In this case, the contiguous United States, right? So we can get all of this detail. We don't want to be zoomed out where we miss that, and we don't also want to zoom in so much that we lose some of it. So we're going for, that perfect scale, that perfect extent right here. Now, one thing I did, and let me pull up this thing, you note that I don't have any borders on anything. And I did that purposely. I wanted it to feel open. And I'm not worried about putting in Mexico or Canada or anything else in here, because this isn't like I said, it's not for navigation. I don't need to know where the U.S. is in relation to other places. I'm simply looking at what's happening with the states in terms of population numbers and density and all of that. So I got rid of this. If you look at our map here, this big black line, that's going to be there if I export this as a PDF. So what you can do with all of these, I don't know if I've shown this or not. If I go into, oh wait, I don't want properties. What's the easiest way? Let's see. Hold on. Oh yeah, I need to do this. Let me close this. Now if I click, will that take me here? Yeah, okay. So I right-clicked and hit properties in here. Yeah, and I go into this little paintbrush thing, border. It's got black 1-point font. You could change it to some other color. The simplest thing, just want to get rid of it, is drop that down to a 0-point line. That means it disappears. All right, so it's still there. There's just no black line indicating that. And I'm fine with that. I don't need that border, right? And it'll be useful when I do some other stuff. So let me hit save. Okay, the next thing I want to do, let's go to insert, do a new map. Just thinking. Okay, I'm going to get rid of these right off the bat because I'm a pro. I'm going to, let's see, I'll do it from here. Go to this properties, general. I'm going to rename it, and we'll do Hawaii first. So I'm going to do this, and this is a geography thing. It's not really a geography thing, it's an indigenous population of Hawaii thing, but I'm going to put in this little diacritic. I don't know how well you can see it, but I just put in the apostrophe, the tick mark there. It's not proper to this, but it's a case when dealing with islands in the South Pacific, as well as just dealing with other cultures, groups in general, languages. It's good to respect the conventions, and so we see this with a lot of Pacific Island nations and names and things like that, is that they have these diacritics, these special marks, lines over letters or apostrophes or things like that to indicate, stopping points, how to properly pronounce the word. So I've got that little mark in there, just the single apostrophe. Again, it's not exactly the right mark here, but it works for this. But it's a respect thing that trying to incorporate. You can do it or not, but it's something to be aware of. Okay, so I'm going to call this one Hawaii. I can do another one with Alaska, but here's what I'm going to do. Okay, I'm going to right click. Now that I've got all of this set up, right, and let's say I like this red pink thing that's going on, I'm going to use this one. So I'm going to right click on states. I'm going to go to copy, and then I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to right click on Hawaii and hit paste. And it gives me, so you know that projection coordinate system thing is back to the default, but it maintains that same symbology, right? So it's still there, okay? So that way I don't have to go through and recreate everything. So the idea is, with this first one, get this set, get it how you like it, be happy with it, then go on, and we're going to make our little inset maps. So Hawaii and Alaska. All right. So we got that. But what I want to do is I want to change that coordinate system. Again, slash projection. Expand this so it's easier to see. I'm going to go into projected. And as you'll recall, we went into continental, did North America, but I don't want the, contiguous USA Albers. That was for the last one. What we have, and this, works, it doesn't really matter, like if we wanted to do some of these, equal area conic and all of that, to fully match it, we could do this stuff, but we're not using this for analysis, so it's okay. But I'm going to select this Hawaii Albers equal area conic. It'll be perfect for just this specific state, right? You can see Alaska looks like garbage. This is weird right here, but this is all I care about. So if I zoom in here, cool. All right, this also gets into issues of scale. It's going to be fine with my map, but as we start to zoom in, this island looks awful. These are chunky, these are garbage right here. If I really needed to do this, in fact, I was just doing a project on the Hawaiian Islands, mapping stuff out. This was not the feature class that I used for these maps because we were zoomed into the state, the specific islands. It was, this for a book, so we wanted it to look nice and be high quality. Found different sources. For this, it'll be fine, but, just something to be aware of. Oops, let me go out this way. When we're zoomed out, this much, it looks fine. In fact, it looks great because it is so simple. But as we start to zoom in, it gets a little simplistic. All right, just a warning. But what we can do, apart from hitting save, always hit save, is we can now go, what is it in here? Insert map frame. I've got the two. This is why taking the time to rename them is useful if it's not fully clear. All right, but I can take this guy and I can put it over here. Are we still thinking? Can we not? I might have to activate. There we go. We're looking at the ocean. So I can leave it like that. Oops. Come on. Such a pain with the two screens. Let's see if I go here. There we go. Close. Activation. Nice, so I've got this over here. Again, that black line, I can get rid of it. Or, you could leave it if you wanted to, but we're going for clean. We're going for simple. All these black, very dark lines around here, not that great as far as I'm concerned. So, that's the thing. I put these islands over here when I was playing around with it earlier. Oops, hold on, let me see. There we go. Do that. I had this over here, but it started to kind of look like, the Caribbean, and I didn't like that. So I specifically kept this one here and put Alaska on this side. It also took, just a heads up, it took a case of, wait, hold on. Gotta go this way. I'm getting used to the Zoom concept. Only, 2 years into a pandemic. But if I activate that, I can move it up. I might need to zoom out a little bit, move it up more, but I'm going to keep messing around with it until everything looks right. I'm not instantly throwing something on here and going, great. I'm taking my time. I want this to look deliberate and neat and nice. So it's going to take going back and forth. Don't expect to just do this in 5 minutes and have something wonderful. It's obvious when you only take 5 minutes and you do just that bare minimum. And I'll be honest with you, your reputation is going to suffer if you do that. You're not going to get that job or that promotion. If you do that, you're not, and your work itself is not going to be respected, as I was saying earlier, in the sense that, if we don't go in and change these coordinate systems in the program, technically we don't need to, but if we don't do that, it says, I don't care. Bare minimum effort, that's what I'm trying to do. It's going to haunt you. You're always going to want to, man, why am I stuck in this entry-level job? And nobody goes to me for help or anything like that. It's It's because of this. It's amazing how these little tiny things will take you so far. My own career, I've seen this. This is why I make such a big deal out of just the look, the aesthetic quality, as well as knowing why we're doing some of this stuff. It's both, it's an attractive thing, it's also a good spatial analysis kind of thing. All right, so we're going to adjust all this stuff, put this stuff in here, okay, but I'll leave it for now. I'm not going to do Alaska. You can do that. The last thing that you really need to work on, apart from, data source name, stuff in there, but we want to have a legend. Again, keep a north arrow. No, we don't need it. Scale bar, no. And it's a case, if you do put in a scale bar, and even a north arrow, you would technically have to do it 3 times because all of these are different. They're going to be different scales. North might be off a little bit in some of these places. So that's what, just don't do it because it's not necessary. And if you just put 1 in there, that actually says, I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, so we're going to leave it out. We don't need it. But the final thing, the one thing we definitely need is a legend. And the rule with legends is that if the stuff's obvious, you don't need it. If I were just showing the states and I had just the names of the states and it was like a reference thing, I wouldn't need a legend. Right? But in this case, anybody reading the map isn't going to know what the different shades of red, pinkish, orange, or whatever actually mean. Right? We might get a sense of, okay, this is more, but by how much? Right? We don't know. So we need some kind of legend in here. Now you can experiment with these different types. For myself, what I do is I just grab the first one, slap it in here because I know I'm going to change it. I'm not going to leave it like this. So what I want you to do is not only make a legend, but I want you to make it attractive, something that makes sense. And you note if I bring this up, okay, a few things. I've got like the thousands separators, those commas. I think I showed you how to do that before, so that it's easy to see that that's 11,350 rather than all of it just crammed together. Okay, it's a case where I don't have things like states in this pop 2020 and then a line SQMI. This looks weird and kind of computery. I just have it simple. Population per square mile. And then the number next to the colors right there, right? Clean, simple stuff. But to do that, I had to get in here and just tear all this stuff apart and move things around deliberately and so on. Okay, so a handful of things with this, and I'm always bad at this stuff because I so rarely do stuff in here, but we'll kind of work through some key things. Number 1, let's ditch that whole, in fact, I guess I could have just unchecked show in there, but I talked to some of you about this. I talked to all of you about it before in the video. Some of you still did it, but don't ever say legend on your legend. It's tacky. It's redundant. It says, I don't know what I'm doing, so we're going to get rid of that. Okay. The other stuff, it's always an adventure in here. This one, yes. Okay, so we've got, what did I do? I did show properties. Under legend items, so group layer name, headings, label. These are some different things in here. Now label we're always going to want, because if I uncheck that, we just have the colors, but nothing connected to them, right? So we're always going to want that. But headings, that's that pop 20 square mile thing, right? That, I don't want that. So rarely do you want it. Instead, what we can do is we can get in here and actually, type stuff in. And that's the idea. All right, so let's leave this as this. The layer name is where it says states. To be honest, I can't remember which one it is. Let me test. If I rename this, okay, it's not that one. Let me undo. A better prepared person would be paying attention to this stuff, but that ain't me. All right, so this one, if I do that, yes. All right, so it's from the main United States one. And you can see I typed hello, and it said hello over here. So this is whatever I type in here is what it will display. So this, what did I say? U.S. population per square mile. If I do that, it goes in there. Okay, and another issue we have is yes, it's doing all this, but the font is default, number one. It also kind of automatically does stuff. This is so tacky. I don't even know why it allows this to be the default, but where you have that title, or this layer name or whatever here, right? And then you have the first two entries, and then the next three, they go in another column. That's fine, but they go up above the title right there. That's tacky, but it's what it does. That's one of the frustrating things. What I'll do, what I always do, is I go in here first. I deal with the font stuff. You know, pick whatever. Some of you mentioned you had different fonts from what you see on my screen. Absolutely. That's just because we all computers kind of come with different preloaded fonts. I also, because I do cartography work and different design stuff, I'll add new ones in. So you're not necessarily going to see the same stuff, but just find something that works for what you want to do. Okay, so I think this is actually the one I used. So I just hit apply to get that to change. Did it not change? Well, that's interesting. Oh, do I have to? Well, no, that's that. Swear to God. All right, here, let's see. Let's just make sure everything's in the right spot. Maybe I need to come back here. This is one of these things why it drives me crazy. So I'm never fully sure of what it's really doing, what it isn't doing. All right. Here, I'll tell you what, we hit apply. Let's get out of here because that hasn't changed. Maybe is it this one? No. Is it this one? No. I swear to God. We've got that word wrapping. No, that didn't. Okay. Apologies for this, but this is part of them. But I'm trying to do stuff to make you getting in and messing around with it less brutal. Here we go. Well, no, that's what I was doing, right? Why is it not? There we go. So all it took, son of a gun, this is why I can't stand it. But this is the thing. I had to go in and just effectively do it twice and hit apply twice and all that to make it stick. All right, but it changed some of that stuff in here. That's frustrating, but what are you going to do? But what I do, go through here, look around all this stuff, look at things. Some of it might not make any sense. You might not worry about it, whatever, but experiment with it. Play around and try some of those other legend types. Initially experiment. It's only going to help you to learn more about what these different things allow you to do. But when you're done playing around, what I do is I right click out here and I hit convert to graphics. Now, what this is going to do is it's going to separate this from the feature class itself. So that means if I go in and I decide, this red, I don't like it. I want to do purple. And I change that, it's not going to update right here. Or if I decide, you know what, it is per square mile, I actually need it square kilometer, I need to go back in and calculate this stuff and do all that. The legend, it's not going to update any of this stuff. So you're going to have to go through the process again. So do this at the very end when you're happy with this stuff. Okay? This is the final step. And you should also have Alaska in here and everything set up. But once you're done with that, convert this to graphics, then right click again and hit ungroup. Okay, and so now these are individual things that I can move around. I can, whoops, hold on. Got a little lag in my mouse. There we go. I can pull this out so it's all on one line, and this is what I effectively did. So if we go back to this, this is once I got everything ready, I ungrouped it after I converted it to graphics, moved things around, put it deliberately exactly where I wanted it, how I wanted it to be. I didn't let all the default stuff stay, but I got in and I could change things. Okay, so that's what you need to do when you're working with Legends. Don't just do what they give you because it shows. It just has that awful default look. And it's a case where this program, it's better than what it has been. But this specific GIS software from Esri, it's never been about high quality graphics, graphic design, cartography, things like that. It's gotten better, but it's always been about numbers and analysis, and it's amazing in that regard, but it's definitely not graphic design software. Right? So what we want to do is learn how to do that incredible analysis and appreciate the fact that we can easily do that in many ways. And we'll be doing some much more impressive analysis than, I mean, this is good. What you're doing with the population per square mile and displaying that, this is more than simply making a pretty map. This is conveying information. That's the goal, right? And we'll learn how to do more of this stuff in more impressive versions here. But that's what we're that's something we're going to do. But the other thing that we want to do is learn how to make this look professional. There's no other way to say it. That it's going to look like a real professional, someone who knew what they were doing, made this thing. That's the goal. You can't tell based on this that this was necessarily made in ArcGIS. I mean, there's some clues, and I could have done more and taken it into other stuff to fully tweak it. But it's a case where this does not look like some default map that some Geography 206 person made. No offense, Geography 206 people, or whatever the number is. I forget what number it is, but it's a case where, whatever, intro to GIS class, it's a case where you don't want it to look like you're some new person just starting out. You want it to look like, I know what I'm doing. I'm a spatial analyst. I'm a geographer or whatever. All right, so this is what we're working toward. You can do this. You have the skills based on what I've gotten into here, other things we've worked on. So that's what I want you to do. And when you're done, save all of this stuff, export it as a PDF. I also started changing some of the assignments. I initially had it just PDF. I put in JPEG as well. Some of you are struggling. I might have like a PNG or a GIF or a few different image possibilities because some of you are having troubles with the exporting where things are hanging up. I would say one general thing, if you do all this work and you save it and you're ready to go export it as a PDF, I would save everything, right off the bat. Try to export it. If it's giving you trouble, shut it down, restart the computer, try it again. Because that's the case. And like we saw when I was trying to change the font here, I changed it, hit apply, nothing happened. I went back in, did it again, hit apply, it finally happened. That's the thing. A lot of times it's the problems we're having, it's all rooted in simply the software itself is getting hung up somewhere. Yeah, so give that a shot. But however you do it, export it, do it as a PDF if that works. That's the easiest thing to do, the best way to preserve this as well for your own records, but upload that to Canvas. Best of luck. You got this. All right. Happy mapping, geographers.